This is The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
All right, thanks a lot for joining me tonight. This is Jeannie Ives. We're here at Elk Grove Village Studios. I got my producer, George, on the other side running things. The phone number here, 312-642-5600. As always, every Sunday night, we have so much to talk about. But in the state of Illinois, we're going to be really talking about that big, bad, ugly budget. Not beautiful, ugly budget that they just passed at, I think sometime between 10 and 11:30. The budget passed last night. Of course, nobody saw it until just hours before it was set to pass. And, I got to hand it to Robin Gable. She's been there since about 2010. She's one of the Democrat leaders, and she's their chief budgeteer in the House. And she actually said in committee, and I heard this myself because I was watching it, we are in difficult times. This is a hard budget. And then they went on to spend more money than they ever spent in the entire history of the state of Illinois for general revenues. And $2 billion more than last year, $15 billion more than just 6 years ago. Oh, they gave pay raises to legislators, $7,000 pay raises to legislators. That's right. And they raised taxes by about $1 billion. But you know what? We're in difficult times. This is a hard budget. No, it's not. She also said there's no pork in this budget. That's a lie, too. Big fat lie. There's plenty of pork, just like the work that we've been doing at Doge, Illinois. You can go to dogeillinois.com. You can look at our Breakthrough Ideas site, breakthrough-ideas.com. You can go there, click on our Doge, Illinois page, and you can find out everything else, because all the garbage that we exposed already this year is back in the budget for this year. Back in the budget. And yet, they had the audacity to actually cut service hours to direct support people who deal with our most vulnerable population, the developmentally disabled. Oh, they gave them an 80-cent per hour raise. Like, that's a big deal. But they cut their hours 35%. The net cost on that, $51 million. But you know what? They paid, about $40 million for welcoming centers. Another $139 somewhere else for immigrant services. That was how it was titled. Yeah, so these guys are the worst politicians in the world. Because they're liars. They're liars. They don't actually care about people. But of course, every single one of those Democrats got up there to speak about the budget, and they're like, this shows us our values. Well, we know what your values are now. Green energy scams, higher taxes, politician pay raises, handouts to crony NGOs that help get you elected, on and on and on. Meanwhile, the little guy, no, not at all. Anyway, we're going to talk all about all of that at the end of my show at the 8:35 segment. We'll be talking with State Senator Republican Chapin Rose. He is the budgeteer for the Republicans, and he has had that job for quite a while. So he knows a lot about budgets. And when I was in the House, Chapin was in the Senate, and I'm going to ask him the question because, in my opinion, this is probably the worst process and the worst budget that I've ever seen, and I've been following this for quite a while. We have a full show for you tonight, and would love to get to some foreign policy stuff. There's so much going on. I got to tell you, one thing that piqued my interest was Palestinians shocked that U.S. aid is free after being charged by Hamas for the UN aid. This was a Breitbart story. Palestinians picking up food packages from the Trump administration-backed American alternative to the United Nations in Gaza were reportedly shocked the aid was free, having become used to it being charged for it. What a frickin' scam. What a scam. I mean, this is just awful. Yeah, Hamas keeps the aid, especially fuel, for itself, sells the aid on the black market, or makes Palestinians pay inflated prices for it. That's what they've been doing. That's how they've been treating their people. And yet, meanwhile, you had this horrific incident in Colorado where a bunch of pro-Israelis were attacked with Molotov cocktails in some sort of, incident at a mall. Yep. Victims involved in pro-Israel walk for hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. And, yep, multiple people injured after attack on Colorado's Purple Street Mall. Anyway, we got to get right to break now because coming up next is Steve Cortes. We're going to be talking about why we should not be funding Chinese businesses in the United States. This is The Real Story. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Rhett Rasmussen of BestHotGrill.com. Gift giving occurs year-round, whether for birthdays, holidays, or a special expression of thanks to your best clients and customers. Of course, you want to show your love and gratitude, but you also want to give a gift that provides a positive image of you and your organization. Solaire infrared grills from BestHotGrill.com are both practical and unforgettable. Made in the USA, Solaire has a grill for most budgets, but more importantly, Solaire delivers the wow that everybody likes to receive in a gift. Impressive out of the box, and even more so in use, the Solaire infrared grills are the gift of value that will build relationships. With every great tasting, juicy meal enjoyed from their Solaire, they'll think of you. Step up your gift giving. Learn more about the amazing Solaire infrared grills at BestHotGrill.com. That's BestHotGrill.com, BestHotGrill.com.
Want to see if you could pay less in taxes? Try the quick and easy tax calculator at willsave.com. Yes, a free tax calculator. That's WILSAVE.com. Calculate how you could keep more of your hard-earned money and give less to Uncle Sam, especially in retirement. Get your free tax analysis today at willsave.com. And don't forget to tune in to Protecting Your Assets with Steve Shyman every Saturday morning at 8, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Hut, hut. Listen up and listen up good. If you're tired of run-of-the-mill gifts, then get on over to aviatorfuel.com. You'll find unique military-style cocktail books and barware to go with it. At aviatorfuel.com, we've got the perfect gift for any soldier, sailor, Marine, or just red-blooded American. You'll especially love our military cocktail checklists, modeled off the real Army, Navy, and Marine pilot checklists that military aviators have used for decades. These award-winning books are authentic replicas, but instead of a procedure on how to handle an engine fire, you'll find the procedure for how to make a mojito, written with military jargon throughout. So pick up a cocktail checklist from aviatorfuel.com. Invite some old friends to share war stories over cocktails. Your perfect libation is inside the cocktail checklist. And don't forget matching military-themed barware. Go to aviatorfuel.com and get ready to raise a glass to the brave men and women who serve our country. That's aviatorfuel.com.
Attention American homeowners, you're under attack. Your home and equity could be vulnerable to cyber thieves. There's only one company that completely stops them, and that company is Equity Protect. Equity Protect prevents any attempts to steal your home, equity, and ownership 24/7. Get your free risk report today by texting the word HOME to 94878. That's right, text the word HOME to 94878 to get your free risk report. Keep your equity and legacy safe with Equity Protect.
I love this song! I love nachos.
Loving everything? You might be buzzed.
You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
We now return to The Real Story. Here's your host, Jeannie Ives.
While the electric vehicle market is imploding, Governor Pritzker signed a deal to give Chen Li, president of Goshen, hundreds of millions to set up an EV battery plant in Illinois. Goshen is strongly tied to China, our number one adversary, and Congress has linked Goshen to slave labor there. Your tax dollars are being used to fund immoral business practices and Pritzker's failing green energy fantasies. Join the fight against this deal at dumpgoshen.com. Paid for by Breakthrough Ideas.
Well, welcome to The Real Story. We're back, and that's the commercial that we ran all last year, alerting people to the fact that Pritzker had paid Goshen, a Chinese Communist Party-backed company, over $500 million to come and settle in a little town of Manteno. Now, the good news is that the Manteno residents organized, and the concerned citizens of Manteno fought back, and they won in court about 2 weeks ago. They won. Of course, Goshen and the village of Manteno had decided to pursue dismissal on the concerned citizens of Manteno's lawsuit, alleging that, first of all, you violated zoning laws. Second of all, you're bringing in hazardous materials. The judge was having none of it, shut it down completely, and it is going forward to discovery and then to a trial. And I suspect that we will have a great chance of winning down there. So, that's the state of the state in Illinois. Goshen, though, has been a problem for a long time, and a number of congressmen have known it. And in fact, the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party has had a number of hearings about Goshen specifically. They even had one right in Manteno. They had a roundtable discussion with Chairman Molinar coming in and Darren LaHood being there, too, along with expert witnesses. And so this is part of the reason that I think the people elected Donald Trump. They are sick and tired of the Communist Chinese Party coming in, buying up our farmland, getting lots of credits. You know what, though? That big, beautiful bill didn't quite do the deal, or at least that's what Steve Cortes has written about in AM Greatness. He wrote, "Don't fund Chinese companies" in the tax bill. Steve is president of the League of American Workers, a populist right pro-labor advocacy group, and senior political advisor to Catholic Vote. Of course, people are very familiar with Steve on AM 560, as he also hosted a radio show here. And so Steve joins me right now. Steve, thanks so much for joining me on The Real Story.
Jeannie, thanks for having me. And it's always great to be on my absolute favorite radio station in America.
Well, that's great. Hey, listen, coming off of that big, beautiful bill, H.R. 1 passage, Chairman Molinar put out that no Goshen policy was included in the bill. He said it was included in the legislation passed today, which prohibits companies affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party from qualifying for green energy production tax credits. Now, I hadn't heard that anywhere but in his press release. So I texted Darren LaHood, and he said the short answer is that no, Goshen itself wasn't technically included, but the bill does include a lot of the language towards the goal of ensuring credits don't benefit China or other foreign entities of concern. The language in the bill is extremely complex and varies a lot by the specific credit. It's so complex that I wouldn't feel comfortable telling any specific company whether or not they qualify for credits. Steve, why is this so difficult to make sure that we're not funding the Chinese Communist Party's businesses here?
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be difficult is the quick answer. The reason it's been made difficult is because major American firms who have tremendous power in Washington, D.C., want these subsidies, even though they are doing joint ventures with these Chinese companies. So that's their workaround. And I'm very specific in my article at American Greatness, encourage folks to read it, talking about Ford Motor Company and what Ford is doing regarding auto batteries and the Chinese firm CATL, which is a massive Chinese battery conglomerate that is absolutely controlled by and deeply embedded with the Chinese Communist Party and specifically the Chinese military. So much so, by the way, that our own military will not source any products that come from CATL or CATL affiliates and alliances with American firms. But this right now is the unfortunate workaround that will unfortunately happen unless something is changed in this bill. And listen, I think there's all kinds of things wrong with this bill. I hate it in the big picture, but just looking at this specific slice of the bill, we are unfortunately continuing the green energy scams of Joe Biden. And that's bad enough, Jeannie. But on top of that, directing that money to CCP-controlled affiliates who are going to be operating here in the United States. And by the way, I would go even a step further. Not only should we not be funding it, these kinds of alliances and joint ventures in the United States should not be allowed, period. They should be illegal out of the gate, just as, I think you were hinting at that they shouldn't be allowed to buy U.S. farmland. I don't think they should be allowed to buy U.S. real estate, period, any Chinese nationals or Chinese organizations. But to have a joint venture in Michigan with Ford Motor Company, an iconic American brand, right, that used to represent America almost as much as the American flag. I think this is outrageous. It's something that needs to be highlighted and pointed out. And if we can't get it prohibited in this bill, then we need to at least name and shame Ford and similar companies who are engaging in these kinds of practices, because it's a scam economically. It's not a good investment for the people of the United States. It endangers our national security, particularly when you're talking about really critical businesses. Now, I don't view these EV batteries for cars as necessarily a critical infrastructure of the United States because, most of that is government directed and, frankly, a scam. But the point is, battery technology in general is critical to the United States, right? And then the future does involve, obviously, a lot more batteries in this country and around the world. And my point is, critical industries should not be pursued in conjunction with the CCP at all, and certainly should not be funded and subsidized by U.S. taxpayers.
Well, I mean, Goshen has set itself up in Manteno as a foreign trade zone. There is fencing all around it. There's a big sign saying that this is a foreign trade zone. They have brought in batteries because they cannot actually manufacture them. They got shut down in Michigan for manufacturing them. So far, that's still in court and going nowhere. It is suspected that they want to bring the manufacturing to Illinois, which is far more favorable in terms of both its court system and its generous benefits. But they're building batteries for Rivian. And Rivian itself is getting $827 million in tax subsidies that were promised to them as well. And both these guys were just flat out cut checks. And what's Goshen doing with that? Buying up precious farmland. So the whole deal stinks. But on top of that, you also referenced in your article, this article by Reuters, rogue communication devices found in Chinese solar panel inverters. And Goshen doesn't plan to just build batteries for Rivian. They also intend to build grid-scale batteries for our solar and wind production. And right now, that is a critical discussion going on in Springfield on whether or not we're going to also fund that boondoggle of grid-scale batteries, which is completely unworkable, 100%.
Right. And listen, I'm glad you mentioned the solar and wind aspects, because, again, these are bad. Like, take the Chinese out of it for a moment. These are bad investments for the American people, from the jump. Right. They do not make economic sense. They don't make environmental sense. And they can't come close. These so-called alternatives, so-called renewables, they can't come even close to meeting the energy needs of America, even right now, forgetting for a moment about the future energy needs, which are going to gallop higher with AI and with the digital world that we are entering. Our energy needs are going to catapult higher. Now, thankfully, we in the United States have been blessed by the good Lord with endless resources, particularly natural gas, under our feet. We can power those energy needs. We can power that AI revolution here in the United States. In fact, we can do it in a way that no other country can. We've got tremendous advantages, but we are choosing through bad policy instead to chase a lot of these green scams and green boondoggles. As a matter of fact, I have a documentary coming out next week on the scam of the wind turbines, on the windmills, which are across Illinois, of course, all across the United States. They are hideously ugly. They're an aesthetic nightmare. They're bad for the environment. They don't come close to making economic sense. And on top of all that, just like the solar panels that you mentioned, where do the critical components come from? China. So we're sending more, not only is it a bad investment on its face, but on top of it, we're sending billions and billions of dollars. Hardworking Americans are spending this money on investments that don't make sense economically or environmentally, but even adding insult to injury, a huge portion of that money is flowing to the Chinese Communist Party. And then also, to your point, on top of it, allowing access to the United States and to critical infrastructure, energy infrastructure, and other kinds of infrastructure within the United States, where they engage wholesale in industrial espionage. And this is not me making this up. This isn't somebody putting on a tinfoil hat. This is the reality of what the CCP is doing here in the United States. But the point is, they couldn't operate this openly, and they couldn't operate at scale in the United States without the willing cooperation of a whole lot of decision makers in this country. And those are both politicians, mostly Democrats, but there's some Republicans playing ball too. And then it's also corporate leaders. And unfortunately, in the private sector, there's a lot of folks who are willing to look the other way, who won't act patriotically, but will simply be focused on how much money can I get via these scams from the U.S. taxpayer in cooperating with the Chinese. Ford Motor Company, I believe, is one of these companies that is shaming its proud heritage in doing so. But we need to expose them, whether it's wind, solar, EVs, anything, farmland. Let's be smart about who we are and what the Chinese represent as a threat to our way of life. And let's be realistic about how and when we do cooperate with them economically. And that should never involve joint ventures in critical industries in the United States. And it certainly should not involve subsidies from Americans to prop up the Chinese.
Well, I mean, you are the president of the League of American Workers. Obviously, you are a pro-American worker, and the Chinese are anti-American worker, if anything. And we've got corporate interests that are finding that they can manufacture anything over in China for cheaper because, of course, you've got forced labor. You don't have provisions like paid family leave.
Right.
You don't, you don't protect their workers at all. And yet, at the same time, they're stealing our technology. The Wall Street Journal just put out this article by Heather Somerville, the self-driving truck startup startup that siphoned trade secrets to Chinese companies. All these people, this was too simple, a self-driving truck firm. It shared its technology with a Beijing-owned firm after promising the U.S. that it would protect its IP. We increasingly create the technology. It then goes to China for manufacturing, and it gets stolen there as part of the agreement.
Yeah.
I want to play a clip here. This was on the Barry Weiss podcast. She had on with her Patrick McGee. He was a Financial Times principal writer on Apple, and he wrote the book, How Apple Trained China to Be a World Power. It's really frightening how Apple has basically turned over its entire operation to China. Without Apple, there would not be China. Without China, there would be no Apple, is the bottom line in this podcast.
I think it's fairly straightforward that China is the only place on the planet that has the tech competence in terms of manufacturing capability, certainly the price, the cost, the quantity, the scale. My novel argument is that it has those skills because Apple built them there, right? It's not that China offered something to Apple, that Apple didn't find these skills in China. It shipped people over by the plane load and created them. And so it's this another layer of nuance that Apple is dependent on the very capabilities that it created. And I think this is like the biggest untold story in tech over the last 25 years. And like my jaw was on the floor as I talked to 200 people and sort of unraveled it all. But I mean, some of the numbers, like anytime you're dealing with Apple, the numbers are just crazy. And so the two numbers that really stick out at me are that the number of people they have trained in China since 2008 is 28 million. Okay, so that's larger than the labor force of California. And the investments they were making in China by 2015 were $55 billion a year.
Okay, so when you think about that, there's 60 million iPhones sold in the United States in a year. And in another Wall Street Journal article, Trump presses Apple to make iPhones in America. It seems almost impossible. Ralph Winkler said, you can't pretend that a supply chain that has been built over the span of 2 decades on the back of a labor pool of millions paid a few dollars per hour is something you could move to the U.S. in 1, 2, 3, 5, or even 10 years, said Craig Moffat, an analyst who writes about Apple. So is that where we are, that we can't actually produce in the United States?
No, listen, I refuse to accept that defeatism, though. Look, with technology, with productivity, with things like I mentioned previously regarding AI and automation, I do believe that we can and will manufacture iPhones and other similar items here in the United States. But here's the point, too, regarding a company like Apple. I'm not saying that, by the way, that transition will be easy, but that transition must happen. We must rebalance our economy. But regarding Apple specifically and other companies like it, but looking at the iPhones, here is an American company that developed amazing technology in large part because of the United States. Okay, we need to be honest about this because of the advantages and protections of operating as an American company. I mean, patent law, deep capital markets, a culture of innovation, the scale of the United States. America allowed Apple to flourish. All credit to their people and to their engineers. But the point is, it happened here, not somewhere else, for reasons that are specific to the United States. Now, I think all of us as citizens of this country, as patriots, whether an individual or a company, it's not just about taking advantage of the opportunities of the United States, but also responsibilities then to the United States. I think all of us should be aware of that. And Apple, if they believe that they can develop these technologies here, then cross the Pacific Ocean and produce the actual goods from those technologies with quasi-slave labor in China, and then import it back into the United States to sell into the crown jewel consumer market of the world, which is what America is, and they expect to do that consequence-free, Donald Trump and America First and Steve Cortes and the League of American Workers, we're saying no. There is going to be a fee. There's going to be a consequence if you want to do that. If you make your items here, no consequences at all, right? Open season, have at it. But if you insist on that kind of offshoring and re-entering the American market, the crown jewel market, you're going to be treated poorly in that process. And over time, that means that high value items will be produced again here in the United States. It won't be immediate, but over time they will be. And by the way, the proof here that this will work is look at what foreign money is doing. Trillions of dollars since Trump took office pouring into investing in the United States. Now, some of those effects won't be felt for years, okay? But the point is that process is already beginning, whether it's the Taiwanese, the Middle East, foreign companies and foreign conglomerates are pouring investments into this country because we're insisting that if you want preferential treatment and access to our market, you've got to make them here.
All right, he's Steve Cortes, president of the League of American Workers, a populist right pro-labor advocacy group, and he's senior political advisor to Catholic Vote. Steve, thanks so much for joining me on The Real Story.
Jeannie, real pleasure, and always great to be on AM 560. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.
Mike Gallagher believes we need to stand together.
The mainstream media to explode with joy. MAGA is turning on Trump. You get the picture? And this is precisely why so many of us are reluctant to pile on. We give the haters and the doubters, we give them an opportunity to batter the Trump agenda.
The Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays at 9, right before Charlie Kirk at 11 on AM 560. The Answer.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Kathleen Maloney. Boulder, Colorado police say they have a suspect in custody after an attack at a pedestrian mall where some people were set on fire. Police Chief Stephen Redfern.
This was a beautiful Sunday afternoon in downtown Boulder on Pearl Street. And this act is unacceptable.
Redfern says the suspect is an adult male. He also says the injuries to the victims range from very serious to minor. The FBI calling this a targeted terror attack. Ukraine says it destroyed more than 40 Russian military planes in a major drone attack.
A security official says it was part of a large-scale operation that took more than a year and a half to execute. Drones were transported in containers carried by trucks to get deep into the country. Several Russian air bases were targeted.
Fox's Stephanie Bennett. America is listening to Fox News.
Everybody seems to be more health conscious these days, worrying about their weight, what they eat, what they put into their bodies. And if you're in pain, taking pills to mask the pain is not the answer. Hi, Amy Jacobson here. Please listen up. There is hope to end your chronic pain due to arthritis or an injury, and that's QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is different. These are not quick fixes. This is a revolutionary treatment that works to give your body long-term relief. You will meet Medical Director Dr. Ashley Caravelli and her team. They'll explain how their regenerative treatments take your own body's healing power and helps restore damaged tissue. So say goodbye to chronic pain and live your best life. Find out if you're a candidate. The consultation is free with appointments on weekdays and Saturdays. Contact my good friends at QC Kinetics. Call 312-809-5955. That's 312-809-5955. Again, 312-809-5955.
Did you know that AM 560 Radio has a full-service digital marketing division called Salem Surround? If you're a business decision maker, listen up. AM 560 listeners are everywhere your potential audience is. So are our incredible targeting capabilities. We localize digital marketing and put it within reach of every business, small and large, in Chicagoland and beyond. Salem Surround offers AI-powered marketing solutions that reach your ideal audience. Whether or not you tap into the proven live, local, and emotional connection that AM 560 Radio brings, Salem Surround offers a total marketing solution to our partners. All-in-one digital solutions that provide targeted local digital and social media ads, Google AdWords management, website services, video strategy, search optimization, and even a management dashboard to offer you total campaign updates and transparency. Your Salem Surround representative is located right here in Chicago. Experience the Salem Surround digital revolution today. Call 847-472-8951. That's 847-472-8951.
Imagine using your skills and experiences to inspire young minds. We see the teacher in you. No matter your starting point, we can help you become a teacher. Teaching offers consistent pay, a pension, and summers off. Learn how you can be the teacher. Visit BeTheTeacher.org. Sponsored by Grow Your Own Teachers, Illinois.
Unshaken and unafraid with Joe Pags.
We break down the lies of the left, lies of the media. We're unafraid to do that. They couldn't get rid of me by ghost banning, shadow banning, and suspending completely on social media. I am a journalist by trade. We always bring you the actual information, the actual truth, the actual fact before we ever even think about giving an opinion.
Subscribe today on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com.
When I was in Iraq, our convoy was hit. It was bad. After I came home, I could still hear booms and see tracer fire. Makes it hard to be a good mom.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
I'm Naomi Mathis, Air Force veteran.
With the right support, more veterans can reach victories, great and small.
With help from DAV, I was able to begin to heal.
DAV provides a lifetime of support to veterans of every generation, helping more than 1 million veterans each year.
Today, I'm part of DAV. We're veterans helping veterans to get the benefits they've earned. And I give my veterans my all.
But there's more to be done and more victories to be won.
My victory is being able to be here for my children.
Naomi Mathis, thank you for your service. May your victories inspire many more. Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
The Real Story with Jeannie Ives continues on AM 560. The Answer.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for joining me tonight. The phone number here, 312-642-5600. We're going to turn to a story now that I have been wanting to cover for a couple weeks now, but because one, I was gone, and then two, it was Memorial Day weekend, we are just getting to the story, but it's pretty much evergreen because you're going to continue to see more stories of this come out because the nonsense has not started. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the middle school biological boy who was allowed to run in the track meet in Naperville 203 Middle School. Now, just a month ago from that happened like around the middle of May. A month ago, of course, you had the Deerfield 109 incident where, again, you had middle school children being confronted with biological men in the girls' locker room. These policies, I mean, it just keeps on going and going and going. Now, I will say this, Breakthrough Ideas, we've been all over this issue because we believe in lies. We believe in common sense. And Lori Higgins, our cultural and education writer, wrote this story. This is from July 8th of 2023. So almost 2 years ago, she said, according to the website Parents Defending Education, as of June 29th, 2023, there are 1,004 school districts composed of 17,000 schools that serve over 10 million students, which have policies that openly state that district personnel can or should keep a student's transgender status hidden from parents. Well, one of those schools happens to be Naperville 203. But there's no way you can hide a biological boy running in a girl's race. It was obvious to everybody. And guess what? People showed up and they spoke up at the district meeting. And one of those people was Mike LaBelle. Here's just a 1-minute clip of what he had to say.
There is a very real scenario where this circumstance becomes even more widespread in District 203 across all levels, undermining girls' sports. These situations place feelings over reason and force other students and families to participate in something we all know is a lie. Parents know this and kids understand this as well. And finally, recent polling from Gallup, Pew, NBC, CNN, New York Times, all have consistently shown that between 2/3 and 80% of Americans support students participating in activities that match their biological gender. This is a mainstream view around the country, and Naperville 203 is an exception, or can be an exception, to where the families stand on this issue. I urge the district to change its course and also encourage families and fathers to stand up in good conscience and send a positive message in defense of our kids and girls' sports. Please do the right thing.
Well, it's not easy to stand up in front of your school board and everybody else and make public comment, but Mike did so. And now he joins us on this radio show to discuss the matter more. Michael, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Jenny.
Yes. So this was, I believe, your first time speaking up at a public meeting, or at least speaking up about such a controversial topic. Tell me what moved you to do so.
Yeah, look, I think really it comes down to paying attention to what's going on in our communities, and really at the urging and encouragement of families that we knew that were trying to find people to vocalize their feelings on this issue. I felt the prompting from some families that we know and respect who've been out in front of these issues that are affecting our kids.
So, Mike, had you been aware that sort of Naperville, like I had started in my introduction, had kind of this policy that they're going to keep a student's transgender status hidden from parents? They would go that far that they would socially transition a kid behind a parent's back. I mean, they've done some other things in the past that are along these lines. They've been really, really heavy into DEI. In fact, they paid a DEI consultant in 2021 $175 a minute to basically tell people they should be ashamed of their whiteness. This is a discussion with teachers, and that they weren't doing enough for minority students. None of that is true, of course. But had you realized how off the rails Naperville 203 had become?
Well, look, I think you saw parents turn out because they're concerned about what's going on, and they feel like many of these policies are being pushed on them. I'm not aware of the specifics, but I think it points to a lot of the ambiguity that's going on, where parents aren't entirely sure, and I don't know that the district has made it especially clear, but it certainly feels as though they're pushing things in a certain direction.
Had you seen any sort of signs that this was going on in the school system? I know you have 4 children, and at least a few of them had been at this same school prior to this incident. Had you kind of picked up on a feeling that this was happening already?
We have been personally impacted by situations like this. One of my kids was at the school, that's tied to this event. And, in terms of sort of gym class, locker room issues with, students, in the opposite or in their non-biological gender locker room, those types of things we had seen, at least in one case that I can recall happen in the past. So, obviously disappointing that it's continuing that direction, but something that we're continuing to try to pay attention to as parents in the district.
So it's kind of hard to start a movement when you feel like you're not being listened to, when you feel like it's a little bit hopeless, but you know that the truth matters. And it matters to your children's futures and that of other children as well. And so I watched most of the public comment period of that meeting, and it did seem that, people who believe that the biological men are men and women are women, they seem to be outnumbered and at least out vocalized by the other side. And it also seemed as if the administration was very dismissive of the entire conversation, hoping that it just goes away.
Yeah, look, I think that there's been some city leaders and organizations that have been, quite outspoken on the issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of what motivated me to want to go is, I think just looking back on the last number of years, fathers in particular have maybe been a little slow to react. I see a lot of, moms organizations and great moms in our community that are speaking up forcefully. I think dads need to step up as well and sort of follow that lead and figure out what we can be doing, to stand up for our families, to speak out in the community and to do it in a way that's, positive and pushes these issues in a good direction for our families.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I know that for me, at least, I believe that a lot of the solution relies in the politicians that you elect, especially those to the school board. I don't believe that there was a real big contest in Naperville 203 in the spring elections, as I recall. And so it's a matter of recruiting common sense people willing to just speak the truth in a reasonable voices and get enough people to vote for them. It's not as easy as it sounds. Do you think, Mike, though, what do you think is you and maybe some of your other friends who feel the same way in Naperville that have been affected by this or potentially could be even further affected by this? What do you think your next step will be, or what should be the next step for people who feel like you?
Well, I think we need more people, speaking out and speaking in line with their conscience. And so I definitely think that's something that nothing's stopping, parents from doing that today, right? And I think that's a good starting point.
Definitely.
It does seem like in areas like these, organization matters, and so I think we as parents and as families in our community need to really increase our focus on what's going on within the school districts and find ways to get, either behind, organizations that are already, in the lead on these issues or getting organized to have a real impact. Because at the end of the day, it seems like the polls, do matter. Getting the outcomes at the local level really does hinge on, sort of the local context. So that would just be one perspective.
So Naperville 203, a lot of people go there because they do better than most school districts. I'm looking at their SAT scores. About half of the students are at grade level in math, according to the SAT. About 60% are proficient, according to in the English language arts. That's official information from the State Board of Education. So many people are just trying to keep their head down and not do anything about it. But it also feels that that's also the way that people get elected to the school board is the unions take their picks. And if you're aligned with the unions, you tend to be aligned with some of this progressive ideology. And when only 20% of the voters show up, then that's what you get. And so we've got a big hurdle to overcome. Do you think that there's a way forward in Naperville? Do you think the administration is going to do anything about this issue?
My guess is as good as anybody's on that one. But I do think, we as parents have to control what we can control.
Yes, that's true.
And so that's, I think, a good place to start. You're right that the turnout at the local level has probably not been what it can be. And, I think when you look at the polls and just the polling on these issues in the big picture, we know that the majority of families in the country, are basically behind biological, kids competing in line with their biological sex in athletics. And I just think through this experience, I've heard a lot of feedback from families, thanking me, but thanking others for, just speaking out on this. And I think there is a lot of support that's behind it, but people need a bit of encouragement and need to mobilize and really come together on these types of issues.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you so much for joining me on The Real Story. I really appreciate you putting yourself out there and speaking up about this. Before we leave, I just want people to know that particular middle school, which is Jefferson Junior High School in Naperville, 66% of the kids are at grade level in English language arts. Only 43% are at grade level in math. 10 students walk into Jefferson High School. Only 4 students walk out educated at grade level in math. That's something people should be considering and taking their school district to task for. In my opinion, Naperville is a very wealthy district. They spend $19,000 per children, and we can do better. Mike, again, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time tonight.
Nice speaking with you. Have a nice evening.
You too. We'll be right back. This is The Real Story with Jeannie Ives.
As you know, our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike is offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets. Any size and any color, just $49.98. That's right, you can even get queens, kings, split kings, and cow kings. Any size and any color, just $49.98. Order now because when they're gone, they're gone. Also, for a limited time, when your order is over $100, you'll receive $100 in free digital gifts. Call 800-489-0201. Use promo code LIBERTY or go to mypillow.com. Make sure you use the promo code LIBERTY for the amazing offer of $49.98 on the Giza Dreams sheets, any size and any color. That number again is 800-489-0201. Promo code LIBERTY.
You deserve a dedicated financial resource. Meet Michelle Shute with West Point Financial Group, a Mass Mutual firm. Michelle builds lifelong relationships, guiding families through legacy strategies. From grandparents down to grandkids, she helps people secure their financial independence. Her tailored approach to savings can help you prepare for college, retirement, or business protection. Michelle's needs-based approach helps you prepare for all of life's biggest moments. Michelle Shute of West Point Financial Group, helping you earn, learn, and secure your tomorrow. Email Michelle at mshute@financialguide.com. That's MSCHOOT at financialguide.com. Local firms are sales offices of Massachusetts Mutual Life Insurance Company. Mass Mutual, Springfield, Massachusetts 01111-001, and are not subsidiaries of Mass Mutual or its affiliated companies. Michelle Shute is a registered representative of and offers securities through MML Investor Services, LLC, member SIPC. Supervisory office located at 30 South Wacker Drive, Suite 2700, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
A great smile can make you feel happy and confident. So when you consciously conserve your teeth, that glowing smile will show through. At Best Dental Group, doctors Economos, Gavalis, and their staff are ready to help you create that perfect look or maintain the one you have now. Along with general dentistry, Best Dental Group is a multidiscipline practice with an orthodontist, periodontist, and prosthetic specialists on site. They use the newest breakthroughs in dental technology such as titanium implants, Invisalign clear braces, and laser treatments. Don't let fear get in the way. They can recommend sedation to make your experience as comfortable as possible. Best Dental Group is located in historic downtown Bartlett and is a multilingual office. Call 630-830-4930, 630-830-4930, or visit bestdental.org. Best Dental Group, sharing your conservative values and helping you to conserve your teeth.
It's important to have a heating and cooling company you know you can depend on. That company is the original Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling. They aren't one of those massive companies with newer techs and subcontractors. Oh no, Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling send only their own highly skilled techs. From service to installation and everything in between, the work quality and customer service is the best. For 40 years, the original Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling has kept homeowners and business customers comfy and warm in the winter and nice and cool in the warmer months. Don't call the big guys, call the best. Call Carrie at 847-545-1700 or visit arlingtonheightsheatingandcooling.net. That's Carrie at 847-545-1700 or online at arlingtonheightsheatingandcooling.net. The original Arlington Heights Heating and Cooling, not the biggest, just the best.
Now, more of The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
All right, welcome back. Hey, we're going to continue this conversation because it's really an important conversation. It's a topic I've been involved in for forever. Certainly since 2013. I don't know if everybody remembers, but Palatine 211 had a huge transgender issue, went through a lot of court cases and all that. And sure enough, they came back and said, oh, no, you got to let that transgender boy in the girls' locker room. So we've been fighting this for a long time. And it just finally appears to me that people are waking up to the fact that their school districts are involved in this. Well, anyway, here to talk about more of that is Doug MacGregor. He is also a Naperville resident, and he was at that school board meeting and spoke up as well. Doug, thanks so much for joining me on The Real Story.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So you've been in front of the school board before. You have even had personal conversations with the superintendent. What did you expect to happen at the meeting, and were your expectations met?
Well, I don't think they're going to do anything until they're forced. They blew the COVID policy. They had to be sued. And then he comes out in front of the school board meeting and says that, we're moving on to the next phase of our mitigation. I wanted to say, no, Dan, you lost. You lost, and that's why you're taking the mask off the kids when everyone else in the country wasn't wearing them. So they're probably going to wait until they're sued, and there's a lawsuit that's been filed. And how much money is that going to cost to defend? There was one gentleman there the other night that talked about that. Are our tax dollars going to go to fighting lawsuits that you're going to eventually lose? So I've met with Dan Bridges, and I can tell you he's got the intellectual agility of a small soap dish and arrogance 10 times that. He doesn't read anything. He doesn't listen to anybody. He's not curious. He's arrogant beyond words. And the same thing with Dr. Leaks. She was hired to close the achievement gap, which you just read part of it. But I looked at that website, and it has not moved at all. In fact, I think the black scores have gone down. So we knew this was a Trojan horse for all this other nonsense, and that's what it is. But the reason why when I spoke, I got into more of the ideology because I'm glad people are starting to wake up with the fairness issue, because obviously that's the obvious one. But we're still losing because it's still happening. And if people understood the ideology behind all of this, the John Money who came up with this gender identity disorder bit, he's such a twisted, sick pervert that had a horrible childhood and life, and he used this as an experiment, and that's what it is. And now, Speaker Johnson just said that a doctor said it's going to be interesting to see how these kids turn out in 5-10 years. So these doctors are performing surgeries that are basically experiments, and then if we just fight the fairness thing, maybe you win there, but it's not going to stop bathrooms, locker rooms. It's not going to stop a teacher from encouraging a young kid that they might be in the wrong body and then, changing their name and all that kind of stuff. So,
well, I mean, it isn't going to stop. I mean,
thing.
you heard about the trans athlete who won 2 girls' track and field events in California in the state finals? And then they had the audacity, California, to say, okay, girls, we're going to give you the medal that you would have won had this boy not been in your race that we allowed to happen. But you're going to stand in the position on the podium where you placed with the boy, but we're going to still give you that medal for the place that you would have had. So they recognized that the boy had an advantage by giving them an actual medal that they would have won had they only competed against girls. I mean, this stuff needs to come undone right now. And the fact, I think that's really lost on people. This is middle school. You have a trans kid in middle school, you have a problem with the parents.
Exactly. And there were a lot of people on the pro-trans side talking about that kid and that he's being targeted.
Nobody's targeting him.
He's being used by adults as a political tool.
Yes.
It's not fair to him, and yet he's being used like that. And so this is a issue of truth, and this is why we have to be willing to plant our flag and die on this hill, because you can't compromise, you can't negotiate with a lie. They will never stop. And, I just had a grandson born the other night. He was not identified as male. He is a male. He's not, or whatever the designation. He's a boy. He's a boy now, and he always will be.
Right.
And so you can't change that stuff. And yet they've convinced enough people that you can, that it's a spectrum. And if you don't understand the ideology behind it, you're going to fall for all these other battles and waste all this time when their job is education, period. So I don't think Bridges, and they're not going to fold on their own. They're going to have to be sued, and it's going to cost money and time. They're awful people, and he works for the teachers union. Not
they all work for the teachers union. All of them do.
Exactly.
I raised this up when I was on with Mike LaBelle, who was on right before you, another parent who spoke up, and I said, why don't we? Are you aware that they've been sort of doing the whole race baiting DEI stuff all this time? I'm not sure that he was or not, but it is interesting because it does matter. So, and I rattled off the performance level of the SAT. So English language arts, okay, you have about 60% are proficient, but the black proficiency English language arts is 17.5%. 17.5%. For black students in Naperville, for English language arts.
She was hired for.
And math, it's less than 11% are qualified in math, are proficient in math at their grade level when you come to grade the SAT. I mean, these guys are failing overall, and these school systems are failures. Yeah. Hey, Doug, you know what? Before I got a really hard break, I cannot go any further. I want to thank you so much for coming on The Real Story. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
We all know the importance of good daily habits, whether it's getting outside, getting your steps in, stretching those limbs, or eating right. Doing it on the regular is key. That's why if you're dealing with everyday aches and pains, it's time to bring Relief Factor into your life. Head over to ReliefFactor.com or give them a call at 800-4RELIEF and get their 3-week quick start for just $19.95. Relief Factor is the daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Developed by a team of doctors, it uses a special formula of 4 natural ingredients. Relief Factor doesn't just mask the pain, it helps reduce or eliminate it. In fact, the longer you take Relief Factor, the more effective it is to get your days going without any pain. See if we get you out of pain by taking their 3-week quick start. It's only $19.95, less than $1 a day. Simply call 800-4RELIEF. 800-4RELIEF. Wherever you're having pain, neck, shoulders, hips, knees, don't let it keep you from living the life you want to live. Make Relief Factor part of your daily routine. Go to ReliefFactor.com or call 800-4RELIEF. That's 1-800-4RELIEF.
News, opinion, insight. This is AM 560, The Answer. WIND, Chicago. Streaming at 560theanswer.com on the AM 560 mobile app, or tell your smart speaker to play The Answer, Chicago.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Kathleen Maloney. Breaking news out of Boulder, Colorado. Police say they have a suspect in custody after an attack at a pedestrian mall where people were set on fire. Police Chief Stephen Redfern.
This was a beautiful Sunday afternoon in downtown Boulder on Pearl Street, and this act is unacceptable.
Redfern says the suspect is an adult male. Demonstrators with a group called Run for Their Lives had gathered in the mall to call for the release of hostages in Gaza. FBI Director Kash Patel is calling this a targeted attack. At least 80 shots were fired in a North Carolina neighborhood in the city of Hickory, where a house party was being held early today. 1 person was killed, 11 injured. No arrests have been made, but authorities say there was more than 1 shooter and over 70 people at the party. Major Aaron Turk with the Catawba County Sheriff's Office says those attending the party were young adults.
We have identified some people that were here that were under the age of 21 in their teenage years, and then persons in their 20s and older.
Turk says the crime scene spans 2 acres. Authorities searching for a former Arkansas police chief turned killer who is still on the run nearly a week after he escaped from prison.
Grant Hardin escaped last Sunday, leaving many here wondering what on earth is taking so long. Well, a spokesperson from the Department of Corrections says they have received a lot of calls about possible tips, but nothing has led to anything credible. One of the major problems was the weather. There was heavy rain when he first escaped the first few days, making it difficult for canines to really pick up on his scent. They also couldn't use helicopters or drones.
Fox's Brooke Taylor in Gateway, Arkansas. America is listening to Fox News.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Tonight, clear with a low of 54. Tomorrow, hazy sunshine and warmer. Wildfire smoke will cause the sky to be hazy with a high of 88. Tomorrow night, partly cloudy and warm with a low of 67. Tuesday, windy and hot with intervals of clouds and sun and a high of 90. Tuesday night, periods of rain and a thunderstorm. Breezy in the evening with a low of 61. Wednesday, clouds and sun with a couple of showers and a thunderstorm. Cooler with a high of 69. I'm Jillian Ford on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Hut, hut. Listen up and listen up good. If you're tired of run-of-the-mill gifts, then get on over to aviatorfuel.com. You'll find unique military-style cocktail books and barware to go with it. At aviatorfuel.com, we've got the perfect gift for any soldier, sailor, Marine, or just red-blooded American. You'll especially love our military cocktail checklists, modeled off the real Army, Navy, and Marine pilot checklists that military aviators have used for decades. These award-winning books are authentic replicas, but instead of a procedure on how to handle an engine fire, you'll find the procedure for how to make a mojito, written with military jargon throughout. So pick up a cocktail checklist from aviatorfuel.com. Invite some old friends to share war stories over cocktails. Your perfect libation is inside the cocktail checklist. And don't forget matching military-themed barware. Go to aviatorfuel.com and get ready to raise a glass to the brave men and women who serve our country. That's aviatorfuel.com.
As you know, our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike is offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets. Any size and any color, just $49.98. That's right, you can even get queens, kings, split kings, and cow kings. Any size and any color, just $49.98. Order now because when they're gone, they're gone. Also, for a limited time, when your order is over $100, you'll receive $100 in free digital gifts. Call 800-489-0201. Use promo code LIBERTY or go to mypillow.com. Make sure you use the promo code LIBERTY for the amazing offer of $49.98 on the Giza Dreams sheets, any size and any color. That number again is 800-489-0201. Promo code LIBERTY.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Pluto TV.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
AM 560, The Answer. The Real Story with Jeannie Ives continues on AM 560, The Answer.
All right, welcome back. It's Sunday night in Chicago. Actually, Elk Grove Village, close enough. We've got Eduardo on the phone. Eduardo from Tampa Bay. Welcome. You're on The Real Story with Jeannie Ives.
Yeah, Jeannie, good evening. Well, I got to talk about that story that's coming up on your news reel here, the one in Boulder, Colorado, with the guy who threw the Molotov cocktails.
Oh, yeah. What you got? What's your take on it?
Well, I mean, this is, I think, another incident against the Jewish, the community and the Gaza war. Obviously, we know about the couple in D.C., and this is the same thing because the guy says, well, stop killing the children, the Zionists. So, that kind of garbage that comes out of his mouth. I mean, you have the mayor, Aaron Brockett, who's a woke mayor because he's into the climate change and racial harmony. Yeah. So they don't want to call it a terrorism because Kash Patel is saying it is. So the media is not going to be. I actually looked at Drudge. Obviously, he's anti-Trump. He doesn't have it on his page. So.
Oh my gosh, it's a huge story.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, Eduardo. I mean, it is interesting. I haven't heard much about the perpetrator or the alleged, criminal here. But if it's homegrown, if it's somebody similar to the man who's from Chicago, whose father is apparently chummy with Chuy Garcia and was taken to actually the State of the Union address by him. If it's somebody like that, we need to figure this out. How are they getting radicalized when they were born and raised in America? Who's radicalizing them? Yeah. Who's doing this? What are they listening to?
It's a good call that we're monitoring these students in college. I think that's a good move that we're going to be doing that. Yeah.
I think it's awesome. All right. Hey, we got to move on. Thanks a lot, Eduardo. I always appreciate your phone calls to the story on The Real Story. Okay, but we are going to move on. We're going to continue kind of on this crime thing, but of a different nature. And here joining me on air is Martin Preib. You've heard from him before. He is a retired Chicago Police Department detective, and he has a Substack as well. And his Substack is called Crooked City. And so you can catch all of his writings there. He's just amazing. And I frequently read his information, and one of them really caught my eye. And that's when he was talking about the city council's ritual of not merely, he says, merely being the most blatant corruption in the country, but it's an attack on the basic values holding the republic together. And he goes on to talk about just how out of control they are, and especially when it comes to settling police cases. So, Martin, I want to thank you for coming on The Real Story.
Thanks for having me, Gina. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so, before we actually get to that, and I think it's a really important thing, even the Chicago Tribune weighed in about all of these payouts to cops. And so, I mean, before we get to that story, though, I just lost my story here. What is going on? After that, before we get to that, though, I did want to talk about Larry Hoover. I mean, Trump commuted his sentence. Now, I believe he was supposed to be serving 200 years, including for murder. And, again, this is Chicago gangster disciple. I mean, when you read the stories about him, he was apparently even conducting business very cushy down in Vienna, Illinois, from a prison there. He ended up going to the Fed because of what he was doing there, basically doing organized crime from that prison, got caught doing that. Then he gets charged with federal penalties and ends up in Colorado. And so now, what's your take on this whole thing? The whole commutation of, because, I mean, there's a lot of Chicagoans who are just very upset about it.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. I've talked to a lot of prosecutors, a lot of detectives. I've talked to a lot of retired detectives who worked cases tied to Hoover. And, this guy is the worst of the worst. And the gangster disciples, has just been terrorizing Chicago and other cities for decades. And I'm a big Trump fan. I like almost everything he's doing. But I think a lot of people in Illinois or Chicago are scratching their heads. And for me personally, I've always felt that the Republican Party has never really understood Chicago and understood the nature of its corruption, how bad it is, how intensely radical it is. And, you saw that with the shooting of that kid shot that poor couple out east. Mm-hmm. And, I don't think the DOJ has ever really had, even going back to the 70s with the Weather Underground bombers and the FALN bombers, I don't think they've ever grasped what a hotbed of all this Chicago is.
Well, no, it's a good point. I mean, Bill Ayers grows up in Glen Ellen. His father is like a ComEd executive, or Exelon executive, one of the two. They owned each other at that time. And then he ends up, after all the damage that he's done, all the, civil unrest he generated, all the bombings actually, gets off on some sort of technicality, and then becomes a professor at UIC and retires. It's disgusting, on a full pension.
I think the thing to understand about that movement from the 70s is there were two sides to it. One of it was this violent radical terrorism, the bombings. But the other side of it was those radical groups from the late 60s and 70s, they were always trying to turn the most vicious killers and rapists into the victims of police misconduct or prosecutorial corruption. And a lot of the cases I think are blatantly falsehoods. But they get so much support from the media. I think one of the great failings in Chicago is the media is not functioning in this city at all, in Illinois. So they do two things. They're very deeply involved in stuff like Black Lives Matter and demonstrations and riots and even violent activities against the system. And on the other hand, I think they've really learned how to turn criminals into like these victims and then these folk heroes, and then make them rich in federal lawsuits. And it's far more effective than any bomb throwing from the 70s. It does far more damage to the system. So for Trump to make a decision, I mean, there's 3 Spanish Cobras in Chicago who were charged. 2 of them were convicted for the murder of a police officer. And the charges were vacated by Kim Foxx, and there's a lot of police and prosecutors who want them to be recharged and retried for the murder. There's overwhelming evidence of their guilt. And haven't seen any movement from Eileen Burke yet to recharge those guys. But I've reached out to the DOJ and said, well, if she won't, you should do it. This is something the DOJ should be working on, not worrying out about a guy like Larry Hoover. I don't. So we're all kind of mystified by it. But a lot of people think that there's some kind of design here, or something's going on.
Some sort of outreach to the black community. And let me tell you, I spent the last 2 days listening in to most of what was happening in the Illinois House and then somewhat in the Illinois Senate. One, because, I care about this. I care about the public policy. Two, I knew that the budget was going to come up, and I knew it was going to be a disaster. And sure enough, it was. And we're going to talk about that in the next segment. But while we were talking, State Rep Marcus Evans, who I know pretty well, he introduced Larry Hoover's relatives. They were standing in the galley. And he introduced them and welcomed them and said they just want to hug their loved one. Like he was pleading an outreach to Governor Pritzker. You know what? Sure, he's released from the feds. Now we want you to release him from the state. He all but said that, Marcus Evans.
Well, I mean, that's what a lot of people are talking about. What's Pritzker going to do? And it kind of puts Pritzker in a trick bag. But even so, I don't see the upside to this, and I just don't think it's probably the first decision Trump has made where I'm sort of scratching my head. But this radicalism of representatives bringing Hoover's relatives up on the stage, it's very deeply entrenched in the political system. I mean, Chicago and Illinois is deeply tied to the most radical ideologues in the country, and they drive that policy. Gangs have a lot of power, going all the way back to the Black Panthers in the 70s and the late 60s. Jeff Fort, the leader of the El Rukns, he was once invited to Nixon's inaugural ball because these guys disguise themselves as social activists, as trying to help the community. They even got grants and loans back in the 70s.
Well, I mean, let's just go down that road a little bit. The ABC 7 report on this. His son Larry Hoover Jr. said he deserves redemption. He deserves a second chance at being part of this community. He can be a benefit to the community if they want. And what they've done, and they do a lot of this, and probably some of it's okay, but I think it needs to be monitored, is they turn them into violence prevention nonprofits. They turn themselves into some sort of violence prevention nonprofits, and then before you know it, they're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases millions, from the state government to do quote unquote violence prevention measures, which I really want to see the actual, well-penciled study on the results.
Oh, yeah, the cops are very cynical about that whole movement. It's another hustle.
It's another hustle?
Mind, the criminal mind is highly recidivist. So when you take criminals and then you try and repackage them as social activists or as violence prevention, it's a very, very sketchy.
Well, I mean, Larry Hoover is 74. There's quite a possibility he's done. He's finished with that time of his life. He's learned his lesson. That's great. I do believe that can happen. And I know some people who have been in that same sort of situation, not murder or anything, but their felony convictions now turn their life around, now trying to help people on the streets. And I do believe that there are good people doing that. I do believe that. I'm just not sure that we should be handing them also the keys to the city and hundreds of thousands of dollars right away to do that type of stuff. I just don't believe we should. Hey, we're going to take a short break, Martin. We're still going to keep you on. I want to talk to you about the payouts that are going on. Apparently, soaring Chicago police lawsuit payouts are set to hit a record amount. That's Chicago Tribune headline today. We're going to talk about this when we get back from the break. This is The Real Story with Jeannie Ives.
It's almost it's time for AM 560's annual golf outing, presented by Signature Bank. And once again, AM 560 is proud to partner with the Tunnel to Towers Foundation as they support America's first responder and military heroes, including homeless veterans, and to help America never forget 9/11. It's all happening on Wednesday, June 18th at McRae Memorial Golf Club in Barrington. Enjoy a full day of golf, meals, an awards reception, and a silent auction. Reserve your foursome today at 560theanswer.com/golf.
Our local hospitals are the heartbeat of our communities, delivering critical care every hour of every day for everyone, training the next generation of caregivers. Beyond the walls, their benefit to the community is everywhere, driving the local economy and supporting local organizations, initiatives, and neighbors. Illinois Hospitals, healing communities. Learn more at team-iha.org. Sponsored by the Illinois Health and Hospital Association. Aired in cooperation with the Illinois Broadcasters Association and this station.
Come on with this, people. Move it!
Did you really think you could make that company deliver yourself?
Oh, I cannot handle any more traffic.
You could be getting much more done at your place of business.
I've wasted 45 minutes and now this place is gonna close.
Time is money. Let Quick Delivery Service take on the traffic hassle for you. They'll deliver almost anything, from large pallets of materials to important documents, or both. No forms, no labels, no scanning. Just tell Quick Delivery Service where it's going, they'll pick it up, and get it to your destination quickly. Your cargo delivery is tracked in real time with GPS. Notifications are delivered right to your inbox. Visit QuickDelivery.com. That's QuickDelivery.com. Or you can deliver like this.
Seriously, another train?
Or get your delivery there on time with QuickDelivery.com. Or call 847-534-2244. 847-534-2244.
This is a special alert during this window replacement season. Don't get tricked by the cheapest offers and gimmicky ads. Now's the time to see and feel the difference of high-performance windows from Valdecas.
When it's time to consider new windows, siding, and doors for your home, you need to look no further. Sebastian Gorka here to tell you about Valdecas. Valdecas has been the trusted name chosen by thousands of homeowners, and they should be your number one choice too. But what's really behind the name Valdecas? Over 25 years of a team dedicated to providing you with the best customer service experience and products that truly bring value to your home. They are a Pella Platinum Elite Status certified contractor for a reason. They have an A+ rating with the BBB, as well as high ratings and positive reviews on both Google and Houzz. Schedule your free in-house consultation at valdecas.com.
Ask about their exclusive manufacturer warranties and their 10-year workmanship guarantee.
Don't wait. Book today at valdecas.com. For the best in class, it's Valdecas.
Hey, heard you're getting ready to move.
We just listed our house on the market.
Just make sure you have the right attorney.
Doesn't the real estate agent take care of all that?
They stay involved, but you want to make sure you have a great lawyer that's negotiating the terms, helping resolve inspection items, clearing up title issues, preparing the deed and other documents, and attending the closing.
The attorneys at Nauman & Associates in Elk Grove Village have decades of experience handling real estate transactions every day all over Chicagoland. NALawGroup.com.
Now, more of The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
All right, welcome back. We still have Martin Preib on the show here. Again, his Substack is Crooked City. You can read everything that he writes about, mainly policing issues in Chicago. But, you know, what's really something that he's always talked to me about is these police lawsuits and the massive payouts that people get. And in many ways, it is a hustle. And, of course, you have the Chicago Tribune headline again, soaring Chicago police lawsuit payouts hit record amount. And more are on the way. It says Chicago spending on police misconduct settlements and other police lawsuits is soaring this year, and the steep price for taxpayers could rise hundreds of millions more. Through May alone, the City Council has already approved at least $145.3 million in taxpayer payments to settle lawsuits involving Chicago Police Department, a record number that dwarfs sums from past years, according to the Tribune analysis. That amount far above the $82.6 million Johnson and Alderman budgeted for settlements, verdicts, and legal fees involving the department does not include many smaller payouts that face less aldermanic scrutiny. What's going on here, in your opinion, Martin?
Well, they created this industry. This exoneration industry is sort of the culmination of this movement that we've been talking about since the 70s of suing police officers. First, they get them out of prison, and they do it with this unbelievable media narratives driving them. The sickest, most twisted media I've ever. As a writer, I find it all so offensive. And they create a tremendous amount of pressure. And once they get one settlement against one detective, they open up. They go back and look at all the detectives' arrests. And it's quite easy to go back into the prisons and ask these offenders, were you arrested by this detective? And then they push this pattern in practice, and they build case after case. And they've been doing this for 40, 50 years now. And foolishly, the right wing in this country, didn't nip this in the bud many years ago. They sort of gave them a little bit of money and hoped they'd go away, and it just fed this movement. And it's a tremendous funding of the radical left. A lot of this money, these billions of dollars that's going to be paid out in these cases, many of which I think are completely false.
Alderman Ray Lopez, in the same article was quoted as saying, we have to stop settling every single time in this room. We have to learn that in some situations, while tragic, they are not our fault. They are not the responsibility of taxpayers. And, can you give us an example to talk about this?
I could say I'd like to respond to Alderman Lopez. He has voted so many times in cases to make these guys millionaires where the cases are blatantly nonsense. So, I like Alderman Lopez in a lot of ways, but, that's a very tepid, vapid, apologetic, political little rant there that it shows you how these aldermen do not look at these cases. They do not investigate them. They don't talk to the detectives. They don't look at the facts. They just go ahead and vote away the taxpayers' money. But
how has it changed policing, if at all?
It's destroyed the police department. It's completely destroyed the police department. I think the police department is on life support. All the veteran, hardworking detectives are retiring or leaving. The morale is terrible. A lot of the new guys coming in aren't really learning how to do the job. They're afraid to do basic things because they're afraid they'll be sued for it. The war on police is very intense throughout the country, but nowhere more so than Chicago. And now this is important, Jeannie.
Okay.
They're moving from the police department to the prosecutors. There's a bunch of campaigns saying all these prosecutors, through misconduct, they ruin these cases, they convicted the wrong guys like these Spanish Cobras. And so it's expanding, not just to the police, they're going after judges, prosecutors. And it's like this Frankenstein monster that if you don't, that's starting to run wild. And no one on the right, particularly the Illinois Republicans, really seems to have the sense of duty to fight it.
Well, you did write in your latest Substack that the expansion means new markets. Towards that end, the movement has initiated a campaign to overtake the Cook County State's Attorney's Office in the same crusade with which they now hold the city captive. That campaign is now at the precipice, leaving every Cook County State's Attorney, active, retired, or in private practice, in the same web of lawfare that has strangled the police department. I mean, if that's the case, we're not going to get anything done because right now it doesn't seem like our prosecutors can even get to all the cases that are happening. I mean, it's crime. It's a crime spree in Chicago, and people know it. That's why they're not staying. They're not going downtown.
It is, and the big test right now is whether Eileen Burke, the new prosecutor, is truly going to be a reformer. Is she going to re-indict these Spanish Cobras? That would be the first step to say, we're going to stand up to this movement on behalf of our prosecutors. These are prosecutors who gave their careers to putting the worst offenders in prison. They're tried, superb attorneys, prosecutors. They have a tremendous sense of duty, and they're just being ripped to shreds by a ideologically driven media. And
well, do the judges have a part in this? I mean, top story on CWB Chicago. Yes. 8 years for carjacking Lyft driver while awaiting trial for 7 juvenile cases. I mean, these judges are just the prosecutors may want to keep him in jail, may want to charge him. You're coming up against the Safety Act. You're coming up against Judge Evans, who wants everybody out. You're coming up against, Sheriff Dart, who's letting people out of his jail. I mean, what's going on?
It is. They have if you're a judge and you're standing up for the police and fighting criminals, they're very mobilized. They will initiate a campaign to have you voted off the bench, and they will drag you through the mud on the media. And they've done this to a lot of judges. A lot of judges who were once real strong has gotten weak. A lot have retired. A lot have been voted out because they've mobilized campaigns against judges, and it's really a sinister movement, and it's very, and people don't understand what's really happening. And this is where I would love to see Trump's Department of Justice get involved in Chicago.
Yes, we do need that to happen. Hey, Martin, that's all we got time for this segment. Thank you so much for joining me on The Real Story.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, and we'll be right back. We're going to talk with State Senator Chapin Rose about that big, ugly budget.
It's almost time for AM 560's annual golf outing, presented by Signature Bank. And once again, AM 560 is proud to partner with the Tunnel to Towers Foundation as they support America's first responder and military heroes, including homeless veterans, and to help America never forget 9/11. It's all happening on Wednesday, June 18th at McRae Memorial Golf Club in Barrington. Enjoy a full day of golf, meals, an awards reception, and a silent auction. Reserve your foursome today at 560theanswer.com/golf.
Fox News, I'm Daria Albinger. This is a Fox News alert. In Boulder, Colorado, at least 6 people are injured after a man set himself and others on fire in a crowded pedestrian mall. This woman tried to help some of the wounded.
I just ran over to stay with them and make sure that they didn't lose too much blood from their legs.
Police say they have a suspect in custody. They describe him as an Egyptian national who is in the U.S. on a visa overstay. Senate Democrats say President Trump's big, beautiful bill is dead on arrival since it would gut entitlement programs that many Americans depend on. Georgia Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock speaking to NBC News.
What we will see as a result of that is a workforce that is sicker and poorer and an economy that's weaker.
Some Senate Republicans say the bill doesn't cut enough. America's listening to Fox News.
It's Reveille. Just a few days ago, parents stormed the Naperville 203 school board meeting to speak about a middle school transgender boy who was allowed to compete against girls in a track meet. Parents voiced their opposition to allowing the boy, who handily won against girls, to compete. Other parents spoke up and were adamant that transgender boys are girls and should be recognized as such. One mother even suggested that the girls need to learn to be disappointed and that losing will build resiliency. So, Naperville, have you had enough yet? It appears that people who had never spoken up about the district's woke agenda showed up to voice their opinion. Where were they 4 years ago when Naperville 203 paid a DEI consultant $175 per minute to criticize white people and tell teachers they weren't doing enough for minority students? The year before that, in the wake of the George Floyd riots, the Naperville mayor at the time kneeled in front of a BLM crowd, only to find that downtown businesses later that day were vandalized and robbed, likely by members of that crowd who were not residents. The question is, are Naperville residents now coming to an inflection point? Are people who just wanted to live in a peaceful city waking up to the fact that the cultural Marxists are in your schools and your school board is unwilling to do anything about it? Do they understand that until you vote these board members out of office, nothing will change? And in order to do that, are they willing to speak up more and get involved in the political process? The other solution is to hope this is an isolated incident your kid won't be affected by. But that would be ignoring the fact that your kid is probably subtly or overtly being groomed to accept trans ideology and DEI nonsense every day in school. So now what? I'm Jeannie Ives. Join me on The Real Story Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. and sign up for my newsletter at breakthrough-ideas.com.
Perhaps you're a collector, or perhaps all of a sudden you have a collection. Maybe it's an inheritance. How do you know what it's worth? This is Sean Thompson for Donley Auction. The market for antiques and collectibles is changing all the time. What is your collection worth right now? Well, I've got an easy way to find out. It's simple. You contact Donley Auctions with their worldwide audience of live and in-person auctions. They have a good idea of how to tell you exactly what it's worth at exactly right now. They're ready to put top dollar in your pocket. The bigger the collection, the better. Go to DonleyAuctions.com and get the info on all things that they buy and sell to have an idea of exactly what Donley does and how much they need your collection. They have so many buyers, it's a great time to sell. Just simply make a phone call. Donley has traveled all over the country to pick up collections. Just call and talk to the people at Donley Auctions at 815-923-7000. Donley Auctions is your trusted partner in turning your collections into cash. DonleyAuctions.com.
Did you know that AM 560 Radio has a full-service digital marketing division called Salem Surround? If you're a business decision maker, listen up. AM 560 listeners are everywhere your potential audience is. So are our incredible targeting capabilities. We localize digital marketing and put it within reach of every business, small and large, in Chicagoland and beyond. Salem Surround offers AI-powered marketing solutions that reach your ideal audience. Whether or not you tap into the proven live, local, and emotional connection that AM 560 Radio brings, Salem Surround offers a total marketing solution to our partners. All-in-one digital solutions that provide targeted local digital and social media ads, Google AdWords management, website services, video strategy, search optimization, and even a management dashboard to offer you total campaign updates and transparency. Your Salem Surround representative is located right here in Chicago. Experience the Salem Surround digital revolution today. Call 847-472-8951. That's 847-472-8951.
You're listening to The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
Well, welcome back. Thanks for joining me tonight on The Real Story. This is a conversation every Illinoisan needs to listen to. I've got one of my favorite state senators on the line with me, Chapin Rose. He's the chief budgeteer for the Senate Republican Caucus. He's Mr. Budget, knows everything about everything. And I got to tell you, Chapin, I mean, I was down there when you were a state senator. I was state rep. You've been down there a while. And I personally think this is probably the ugliest process and the ugliest budget I've ever seen.
It was unreal. What happened? Just absolutely unreal. And Jeannie, thank you for the kind introduction. It's great talking to you. You're an amazing champion for freedom. So thank you. It's a compliment coming from you.
Well, I mean, I got to say, the Tribune's, big story that just popped up. After lawmakers passed a budget with cuts and tax hikes, Governor Pritzker blames the state fiscal challenges on Trump. I mean, we heard this repeatedly on the Democrat side in the House and the Senate.
What a joke. I mean, first of all, let's just backtrack for your listeners for a minute, okay?
Yes, please.
6 years, J.B. Pritzker, 6 years he's been governor. He's raised the spending in the state by $15 billion. Okay, nobody put a gun to his head. Donald Trump didn't make him do it. Okay, in fact, Donald Trump's only been back here for 2 years or for 2 months, right? A couple months. Mm-hmm. So 6 years, $15 billion. It's up almost 40%, Jeannie. Now, for all your listeners back home, how many listeners? I just want how many of you got a 40% pay raise in the last 6 years? Nobody listening got a 40% pay raise in the last 6 years. We the citizens can't keep up with the government spending. I mean, and they just keep crushing us time and again with more taxes. Again, what we saw last night, they load up their grocery cart before they look in their wallet to know how much money they spend, and they back into the number, and then that's going to be the tax increase every year. We can't do it. We are being crushed.
Yeah, they don't seem to care. And then the whole thing about, these budgets come out with essentially 30 hours before the deadline. I mean, the whole process is screwed up from the get-go. Gut and replace bills, empty shell bills, loading them up. Nobody gets to read it. They don't even know what's in it. I mean, I don't even know how to explain to people how bad it is down there when it comes to process.
Jeannie, let's just give you kind of a real time. This is what happened.
Okay.
Okay. So yesterday was Saturday, right? The budget was voted on after 9 o'clock in the House, after 10:30 in the Senate. Okay. The House debated it Friday when the fake budget was filed. Okay. And by the way, it was just one budget bill. It wasn't the revenue. They didn't tell us what the taxes were. They didn't tell us what the budget implementation was. It was just a fake budget that wasn't real. So the House went and debated that in a committee on Friday night, not having the full story. Okay. Then the Senate, we started talking about the budget about 2 p.m. on Saturday, right? But the revenue package still hadn't been filed. Now, keep in mind, that was the second amendment. That was an amendment to the budget from the night before the House debated in committee. So now the House committee debated a budget that wasn't even the same budget that the Senate was debating in committee, right? And neither the House nor the Senate had the revenue package to know how this was even being paid for. So, I think it goes without saying, Gene, because you were down there, you know what you're doing. But, I mean, this isn't rocket science. Anybody back home understands, how do you debate a budget when you don't know how it's being paid for? When you don't know and you know, well, how much tax? Well, we can't tell you the taxes. Why can't you tell us the taxes? Well, they're still up there, because you're not done spending. And you know what? I was right. I brought that up at 2 o'clock Saturday, and sure enough, there was a couple other amendments after that added still more spending, and then they figured out, again, now we know how much we have to raise in taxes. And boom, there's the revenue bill. The last bill to be filed is the bill to pay for it all.
Well, that's because they hadn't gotten in all their crony NGOs that they need to give, well over $1 billion to, like Life Shack. What the hell do they do? Or Whiz Kids Foundation, or Positive Moves for $250,000. I mean, this thing is so larded up. And then, tell my listeners again, with some of the other games that they played, how the Democrats get member initiative money and the Republicans don't. I don't personally think anybody should get these earmarks, but whatever.
Let's just let's look at this Tribune headline, right?
Yeah.
Blame Donald Trump. Pritzker blames Donald Trump. Really? So Donald Trump demanded that the Democrats do $270 million in Democrat-only poor projects. Yeah, I'm sure Donald Trump was all over that one. Wait a minute. There's $40 million for a new school, brand new school construction in Speaker Welch's district. Yeah, I bet Donald Trump was for that one too. Wait a minute. There's $40 million for immigrant welcome centers, and then another $40 million for illegal immigration services. Okay, there's $80 million. I'll bet you Stephen Miller spent all night Friday night negotiating that on behalf of the president, right? I mean, Jeannie, this is insane.
Yep.
No one forced J.B. Pritzker to spend $15 billion in 6 years except J.B. Pritzker, right? And to your point, I mean, $20 million Southwest Side or South Side
organizing.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. You think Donald Trump made you do that one too? Oh, I know. Then we got the transit bill, right, with this $1.50 delivery tax that passed the Senate.
Which I'm glad it passed the Senate. You know why? Because now you can find out all the radical, stupid suburban Democrats that need to be taken out. I mean, this is like the Tony Preckwinkle soda tax. This should be the deal killer. Every one of these people should be voted out of office. They voted for a $1.50 delivery fee on Amazon, Grubhub, Uber Eats, or any other marketplace facilitator.
Walmart.com.
All of it.
I mean, listen, so you're a newborn mother. You just went back to work. Maternity leave's over, and oh shoot, we're going to stay late. I can't stop by the store to get diapers, so I order them up. $1.50, right? $1.50 for the diapers. You're the senior citizen has a hard time getting out of the house. $1.50. You're the senior citizen who lives in Chicago, but your grandson's in Champaign. You want to send him a birthday, present, or a graduation present. $1.50. I mean, $1.50. Can you imagine how many $1.50s are spent on a daily basis by the people of Illinois?
Well, the other thing about that transit bill, which I didn't like, and I think it's important to put this out. I mean, the other thing is, like, if you use the tollways, which I live right near 355, I use it all the time. I'm probably on it once a day. But every time I use that toll, it would have been 50 cents for a total of $1 a day in total. If I use that every day, that's a $365 additional tax to me just for using the tollway one time. And it's all going to bail out CTA pension fund.
Well, you know what? In the spirit of J.B. Pritzker, let's just point out, I bet you Donald Trump made him do that one too.
Right. I know, they're just like crazy. It's nonsense, but they said that. Gazzardi said the same talking point as well. That, the chaos created by the Trump administration, we don't know what's going to happen with higher ed funding or Medicaid funding, or, well, you shouldn't have had single able-bodied adults on Medicaid to begin with, but you did it.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned higher ed. It's hilarious.
Oh, higher ed, please do. Yeah.
They're blaming Donald Trump. The governor does 3% increase for the universities in the state of Illinois. Okay, a 3% sheriff increase. The Democrats, to fund all their Democrat pork, cut it. They took 2% off. So at the end of the day, they got a 1% increase. Okay. Yep. Donald Trump made them do it. I mean, like
No, look, say that again. The universities, because I watched some of them coming in to hearing, pleading their cases. We need more money. Of course, they wanted the race-based education funding formula. That went nowhere. They want $135 million more for that. All right. But, okay, so they came in, every one of them, I need more money. And the governor said, okay, we're going to give you 3%. But the Democrats negotiated it down. The Democrats in their own party only gave them a 1%. Because they had all this other pork they want to pay for.
Right, they cut. Well, somebody's got to pay for the illegal immigrant welcome centers. By the way, my new favorite senator, Chris Balkema, goes, wait a minute. He goes, border crossings are down 93%. Who was there to welcome? Exactly.
I know.
For immigrant welcome centers. It's insane. I mean, but I'll tell you, I lost my mind at one point, and I literally said, you guys are nuts. You're literally nuts. I mean, this delivery tax. I mean, you talk about regressive. I mean, these progressive left people tell us all the time, oh, tax the rich. You know what $1.50 does on a senior citizen who can't get out of the house? That's the single most regressive tax that they've ever even conceived of.
Well, on top of it, I got to admit, my son and my sister-in-law, my daughter-in-law stayed with us for a while. And honestly, we would get Amazon deliveries a couple times a day with those because the younger generation's just used to doing it. Seriously.
Well,
so,
I think everybody listening should think about in a week how many deliveries they get.
Right. That's right.
Take each, take that times $1.50 and then take that times, 365 days a year. I mean, this is a huge tax on the working people of Illinois, the senior citizens of Illinois, the single moms of Illinois. It hits the people who truly can least afford it.
Now, let's be fair here. That bill did not pass the House yet. Do you expect that it will in some way, some form?
So I think you're correct. So let's step back. So that bill passed the Senate with that tax increase in it. There was another $1 billion in tax increases that did pass both the House and the Senate in the budget, right?
Yes.
So let's just be clear for your listeners, and I appreciate you pointing that out. There's $1 billion that passed both chambers, and it's now on the governor's desk. This Amazon delivery tax is part of the transit bill that Brandon Johnson demanded as the mayor of Chicago to bail out the CTA. And so that has passed the Senate, and yes, the thinking is that they ran up against the clock. There were a couple of Democrats that weren't there last night, so they couldn't hit their majorities they needed to pass it because at midnight, as you know, all the clock changes and now you need you go from a simple majority to a super majority to pass the bill. So the thinking is that they're going to count their noses, get their ducks in a row, to mix my metaphors, and they will be back at some point in time.
Okay, so we have to be on the lookout for that because that is just like pack your bags and move out of the state because they don't respect you at all. That's the problem. They don't respect taxpayers in this state. They think your money is their money's and they can waste it however they want to. And that's what they're doing. They are wasting money. Okay, just two quick things that I did want to cover. One is this shameful, gratuitous pandering that actually was a terrible thing that they did for DSP people, direct support personnel. They got up there and they said they gave them an 80-cent an hour pay increase, but actually they cut hours.
Yeah, they cut 630,000 direct care hours to our development disabled friends and neighbors.
Terrible.
Our fellow human beings, the people who, through any moral ethic, whatever your religion, party, whatever else, these are the people we truly have a duty to take care of, because through no fault of their own. But I mean, direct support professionals, for your listeners, these are the folks who bathe, feed, toilet, hygiene, all the things. And they came in and said, we'll give you, the governor had 50 cent an hour increase in their pay, which, by the way, under Governor Pritzker, we've gone backwards, right? So when Governor Pritzker came in, they were at 150% of minimum wage is what they were getting paid to do these duties and chores. Now they're down to like the 140s, okay? So Fritz, you need $2 to get back to 150 cents, okay? You need $2. Pritzker comes in and says, I'll give you 50 cents. Well, that's an insult, okay?
It is an insult.
But set that aside for a minute. The Democrats then come up with, they say, oh, we're so nice, we'll make it 80 cents. Okay, wow, 80 cents. Well, that's definitely better than 50 cents, except they didn't change the approach, Jeannie. So the dollar amount remained flat, which means at the end of the day, if you're gonna pay somebody 80% more and you only have 50 cents to pay them, you're gonna have 630,000 less direct care hours for our developmentally disabled friends and neighbors in this state. 630,000 less hours of toileting, feeding, bathing, personal hygiene. Think about that. It is despicable on its face, but it is beyond cynical to look you in the eye, lie to your face, tell them you're doing something better at 80 cents, knowing damn well that you didn't do anything but hurt them. They hurt them.
This is who the Democrats are. They are not compassionate. Last point to make: zero property tax relief, and in fact, they went backwards.
They got it.
I know.
In the entire state budget, there was like a $43 million or $48 million in property tax relief in the K-12 budget for limited school districts in poor neighborhoods, and they cut that out.
They took that out. They cut it out. They said, "Yep, we're putting that on pause."
Put it on pause. That's what pause. We're putting that on pause. They put the rainy day fund on pause too, by the way. No property tax relief. They took it away. They put the rainy day fund on pause. They have taken a huge bludgeon to our development disabled friends and neighbors. I mean, it's just sick. And then raised $1 billion in taxes. And I think, I mean, as we just talked about, they're just getting started. I mean, I think the House is coming back this summer, and they're going to do that $1.50 Amazon delivery tax.
They're awful. Okay, Chapin, I want to thank you so much I know it's been a really, really long week for you, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this information. Everybody needs to know what's going on in the state of Illinois, and then they need to act. They need to vote these people out of office. Chapin, thank you so much again for your insight. Really appreciate you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Jeannie. Keep the fight up, and for the fight in 51st Senate District, we will never give up. So.
Sounds great. Okay, we'll be right back. This is The Real Story with Jeannie Ives.
Chicagoland certified financial planning professional Tim Stearns discusses taxes in retirement.
Most people are paying more in taxes and keeping less of their money to live and do what they enjoy. That's why we've put out the retirement tax bill calculator online. You can see with your own eyes just how much you might be overpaying. It's a valuable tool, $500 value, but we made it free for you to view and run your own numbers at mvpcfp.com. That's mvpcfp.com.
To run your retirement tax bill calculator, go to mvpcfp.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Cornerstone Securities, LLC.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
Attention American homeowners, you're under attack. Your home and equity could be vulnerable to cyber thieves. There's only one company that completely stops them, and that company is Equity Protect. Equity Protect prevents any attempts to steal your home, equity, and ownership 24/7. Get your free risk report today by texting the word HOME to 94878. That's right, text the word HOME to 94878 to get your free risk report. Keep your equity and legacy safe with Equity Protect.
Maha starts with Virago, making America healthy again. With the worst flu season in years, you need an immune system boost. The stronger your immune system, the stronger your body fights and defends against So get Virago. Virago Immune Enhancement Support is a unique blend of 23 nutraceuticals, ingredients that have been available as individual nutraceuticals, but now working in synergy to maximize their effects. Recommended by medical physicians, dentists, and other healthcare professionals, Virago is the nutraceutical cocktail for immune support. Developed to strengthen your immune system for quick response to immune challenges, for short and long-term immunity, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. It even protects your heart, kidneys, liver, all in a unique liquid supplement for better absorption. Order online at myvirago.com. That's myvirago.com. myvirago.com. Use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. Quality ingredients for optimum health. Maha. Making America healthy again starts with Virago.
We always use M13. They can print anything.
They design and price match. M13 does amazing work.
M13 Graphics has helped make our brand stand out. They're definitely the best for less.
Before M13, amateur. With M13, we look awesome.
M13 Graphics, Chicago's leader in full-color design and printing. Set your business up for success with exceptional print products. Turned around in just 24 to 48 hours. Business cards, postcards, posters, banners, brochures, apparel, you name it. M13 will design and print nearly anything for your business. They have the right people in place and a reputation that keeps customers happy and coming back for more. They're a Chicago company that embodies the idea of business integrity. They live it every day. After all, in this country, you're free to do business with who you choose. Respect that freedom. Choose the best. For speedy turnaround, excellent service, and the best pricing in Chicagoland, choose M13 Graphics for all your design and printing. Online at M13.com. Visit M13.com or call now, toll free, 877-M13-1913. That's 877-M13-1913.
You're listening to The Real Story with your host, Jeannie Ives.
All right. Thanks a lot for joining me. It's been, I feel like, a really fast night. A lot of conversations going on. Hopefully you learned something from here. I've only got a few minutes left. Just wanted to cover some of the more other things that went down in Springfield because as they were doing these 48 hours of hurry up and wait. In between all of that, they passed a bunch of other kind of stupid bills. One of them, HB 3709, says that public universities with student health centers must dispense the abortion pill and advertise the service. You had SB 1331, Minority Teaching Scholarship. The bill is, it's interesting because the state's being sued for violating the law for obviously having a racist scholarship like this. And so all they did was change the name and some of the metrics, but not a lot of it. They had HB 3193, which is an omnibus pension bill. Now, this bill, fortunately, they did not pass Tier 2. They were going to make essentially Tier 2 radical changes where they almost became Tier 1. It could have added $30 to $75 billion to the unfunded liability at both the state and the local level. And you already have $145 billion at the state level. You probably have, I think, $40 or $50 billion at the local level. You're talking about, $300 billion in unfunded liability. You don't get out of that. And they were going to change that. They didn't. But instead, they tweaked in at least 21 different ways particular parts of the different pensions. So downstate police guy wants to become a firefighter. Oh, we're going to give him pension parity. You've got, hey, this teacher worked, she's on a pension, but she decided to go back and substitute teach for 600 hours because they needed her. And she actually taught for, over that amount. And so you're going to do a little fix for that. It's just like a survivor benefit here, all sorts of things, but 21 different tweaks. Well, guess what? If you simply had them on a Social Security and a 401k program, you wouldn't be doing these fixes all the time. They're doing them every single year. Meanwhile, I don't even know what the pension payment was in this year's budget, but I think it was at least probably close to $12 billion. So you're still right around that 20% level of money going only to state pensions. This isn't even your local pensions. Oh, geez. What else did they have? They had passed a bunch of goofy resolutions. H.R. 166, Little Palestine Day. Yep, Little Palestine Day. It urges Illinoisans to celebrate Little Palestine Day by supporting businesses and cultural initiatives of Arab Americans community. Okay, all right. I mean, it's just like at some point it went from like the absurd and the ridiculous and the unserious to really just people working behind the scenes, behind back doors with just staff and a few Democrats to basically screw you over. And that's what this budget was. It's a total screw job. Probably one of the worst I've seen. Anyway, that's Illinois. And until you do something politically about it, nothing's going to change. All right, that's all I got time for. We'll be back next week. Thanks a lot, George, for helping me produce this show. Appreciate everybody listening in. You just heard from the real story from Jeannie Ives.
Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime adventure. Set sail August 16th through the 23rd on the Patriots Alaska Cruise with me, Mike Gallagher, and our friends Larry Elder and Jennifer Horn, Joe Piscopo. Experience breathtaking glaciers, fjords, and wildlife, all while diving into critical discussions about America's future with hundreds of like-minded patriots.